This very short introduction is not simply or even primarily an abbreviated history of evangelicalism, although it does trace a generally diachronic arc. Its main purpose is to acquaint the listener with the character of evangelicalism, with its peculiar nature. The parallel is absurdly grandiose. But just as the Gospels themselves set out the general progress of Jesus' life while fairly freely grouping material to make thematic points, the career of evangelicalism demonstrates the original and abiding central qualities of evangelicalism as the theme of this volume. Evangelicalism traces its roots back to the Bible itself, which is fitting enough, since evangelicals describe themselves as Bible people. But evangelicalism as a definite something arises out of the Protestant Reformation of the 16th century, and then takes shape via the English movement of Puritanism and the Middle European movement of Pietism in the 17th century. It blossoms into the transatlantic revivals of the 18th century, the era of the movement's ancestors, such as itinerant preacher George Whitefield, pastor and theologian Jonathan Edwards, and the brothers John and Charles Wesley, the former evangelicalism's premier organizer, and the latter its leading hymn writer. From this era of the evangelicals, the story goes global, such that today, evangelicalism is one of the largest and most lively social movements on the planet, touching almost every culture and deeply influencing hundreds of millions of people from Johannesburg to Jakarta. But what sort of thing is evangelicalism? A checklist of doctrines? A set of convictions? A coordinated ecclesiastical movement? A recurring impulse to renewal? A particular style of religion? We will arrive at a qualified yes to all of these alternatives and more, because evangelicals are perhaps best understood as simply vital mainstream Protestant Christians, committed to the gospel, the evangel, its proclamation, and its implications for all of life, and doing whatever they can to further the gospel's reach. Chapter 1. Original Evangelicalism. Back to the Bible. Evangelicals reflexively define themselves in terms of the Bible, and histories of evangelicalism often have traced it back to the sacred scriptures of Christianity. Evangelical, after all, stems from evangel, Greek euangelion, the word translated good news in modern Bible versions and gospel in older ones. Evangelicals see themselves as focused on, redeemed by, and commissioned to proclaim the good news of God's salvation through Jesus Christ. The Bible is the divinely inspired account of that salvation. So evangelicals are Bible people. The great evangelical leader John Wesley, arguably one of the best-read people of his erudite age, and himself the issuer of over 400 publications as author, editor, or publisher, called himself Homo Unius Libri, a man of one book. Every Christian, however, would claim to revere the Bible as God's written word. Roman Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant, all Christians are Bible people, and all of them view their churches as stemming from the career of Jesus. What else could they think? Evangelicals differ from Catholics and Orthodox Christians in that they champion the Bible as the supremely authoritative guide to faith and life. Their Catholic and Orthodox siblings hold to the idea that the Holy Spirit of God continued to teach the Christian church new things over the centuries, since the composition of the New Testament in the first century. The church was led by that same Spirit to receive these teachings as divinely given, and thus came to respect tradition alongside the Bible as a religious authority as well, not unlike the way Jews regard the Talmud and Muslims regard the Hadith. And like Jews and Muslims, Catholics and Orthodox differ among themselves about just how authoritative that tradition should be understood to be. Evangelicals, by contrast, have tended to be suspicious of what grew up in the centuries after the apostolic age. As Martin Luther